Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on the Arrowverse, DCTV, but also the larger DC universes coming our way. So as we know, the DCTV reign on the CW, most recently dominated by the Arrowverse, but it did start with Smallville all the way back in the early 2000s. That will be coming to an end at the end of this year with the fourth and final season of Superman and Lois. Now, the Arrowverse itself, of course, started back in 2012 with the premiere of Arrow, then leading into The Flash a couple of years later with Supergirl, Legend of Tomorrow, and all the other shows following afterwards in fairly quick succession. With the mastermind behind the Arrowverse, as well as some other DC TV shows like Doom Patrol and the other DC Universe streaming shows, is of course that of Greg Berlanti. Now, many might remember that when they were looking for a new person to take over as the head of the new DC studio setup, there were a few names put out there. Of course, two of them were James Gunn and Peter Safran, who ended up combining to be co-heads of DC Studios. That being made official towards the end of 2022, I think it was from memory. But another that was mentioned and was being heavily considered was that of the creator of the Arrowverse, Greg Berlanti. Of course, at the time, I said it myself, but many others did as well, it would have been pretty surprising if Berlanti took the offer and took the role, or took over in the role, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it would have probably, if not most likely, just been a demotion from his current position and what he was doing with his production company. It just felt like it would have been a step down. And secondly, he just spent just over a decade at that point putting together a connected DC universe on screen. He probably wouldn't have been overly motivated to do it again. He already did it once. So it wasn't a surprise that he wasn't the one that ended up getting the position. I think the reports actually said he pulled out himself because he wanted to focus on other things out of DC and just, I guess, comic books as a whole. And that does lead into what has just come out. So while promoting his new movie, which he's directed, Fly Me to the Moon, which stars Channing Olivia Tatum and Scarlett Johansson, Greg Berlanti was asked by comicbook.com, as you'd expect, about the upcoming DC universe under James Gunn and, his time working on the Arrowverse and how it was just sort of like an avalanche of perfect timing in regards to it working out, which could be a hint at the future of DC Studios and its success. So on the upcoming DC universe and whether he would be involved or help in his time previously, this is what he had to say. I kind of feel like I served my time doing the Arrowverse projects. It was a real special moment in my life creatively. I don't know that I would be ever be able to recreate that experience again. The people I got to do it with and the actors that I got to work with that I'm still close with, it was a really special time. I want them to succeed when talking about DC Studios in all the ways that we were able to. I do anything to help anybody, but I have to say for us, that was a real Camelot moment of everything. For 10 years, we got to use and work with all these characters. Our number one credo was we want to put these characters back on the shelf more valuable than when we took them off, so that people would be interested in all of their stories. And when he talks about like a Camelot moment of everything, that's just like pretty much like perfect timing. Everything lines up correctly, which if you think about the Arrowverse and its history and how it was born, that really sums it up. Like he came off like co-writing a previous script on the Green Lantern movie to then like Smallville ending and then the Green Lantern sequel not working out. I think he was meant to write the Flash movie or something, and then they ended up creating the Arrow, which then led into them creating the Flash. It was just pretty much the perfect timing for good things happening but bad things happening at the same time, which led to this great thing happening that lasted over a decade at this point now. But that final thing there, I think, is Berlanti's and the Arrowverse's best influence on the DC studios when talking about putting them back on the shelf. Of course, the connected universe and all of that, and potentially how certain character interactions could be attributed to the Arrowverse in this new DC studios and how James Gunn wants to do with it. But as Berlanti has said in the past, and as I think is pretty evident in the shows and specifically the crossovers as well, the Arrowverse really was just being the comics, making these comics into real life. Maybe not specific stories, like adapting them, one-to-one, but just the overall feel and world and the characters and their interactions. That was what I loved as a whole and the most about the Arrowverse. If I had to specify one thing, it was just those comic books or those comic panels brought to life for the most part with those characters and the characters that they were able to use, which at the end of the day, they got to use a pretty decent amount of characters. But back to that last thing that Berlanti said, which is about them when the shows are all said and done and they put the characters back on the shelf, they are more valuable when they took them off and started making the shows at the beginning. And for the majority of the characters, that is 100% the case. Now, you might not necessarily like exactly how something was done, but in regards to them having more value and more people knowing about them and more people being interested about them going forward, easily, the general audience or even DC fans or just TV fans are more knowledgeable fans and excited fans for certain characters going forward. How many people didn't know anything about the Flash? They might have heard of the Flash, but they didn't know that the Flash was Barry Allen, he had these powers and could do this and versus these villains. And now can't wait to see what James Gunn does with the character with a much bigger budget and within this connected universe interacting with all these different characters, maybe even Batman for once. Same with Green Arrow, even with somewhat larger characters like Superman and even Supergirl. And, you know, more people would be, you know, interested in maybe Supergirl. Like, obviously everyone's referencing the Melissa Benoist show and stuff like that, even though I think Supergirl was a bit more known than, say, Green Arrow, for example. But I can't wait to see, even though I was already a massive Green Arrow fan before Arrow came out, you know, I'm excited that more people know about the character and can't wait to see him in the film, or at least in this connected universe that James Gunn is doing. And there would be a good amount of people that now have a larger excitement, which could be met with larger expectation for certain characters that were featured in the Arrowverse and they grew to love, though they might not have been massive characters in regards to like the Flash or Green Arrow. Like, more people are interested in the Atom, like Ray Palmer, or even like Captain Cold or something like that. There's just a, you know, they've grown to like the character and know the character. Now they want to see another version of it in this new world. And of course, they might have transferred that interest already over into the comics and even other media that those characters would feature in. And then when this new DC Studios universe rolls around and maybe they pop into, there's another form of media then for them to spread their love for that new character they, you know, discovered how much, you know, whatever amount of years ago it was. Now here's the big question, because this is sort of, I guess, the basis of what they were trying to pick from him when they talked about it. Could Berlanti helm a project in this new DC Studios universe, whether it is on film or on the TV side? I think in the short term, regardless, the answer is no. However, the project that has been announced, if I was to hypothetically pick one and go, well, if he was to, you know, do one, what project would he do? If I had to pick one that's already been announced, that's not filming obviously, but like is in development, that I think he would fit the best, I think it'd have to be Teen Titans. Of course, he was behind the Titans show, but he was just really an executive producer and was just under his production company. He wasn't actively involved with that show for the most part. But I think he would nail that, at least like the tone with those characters and everything like that. But once again, it's too soon. I think if we were going to see Berlanti helm a movie or even a TV series, like obviously people might go, well, he was a TV producer, but I mean, if we're talking about like it's Berlanti's name on it, he'd direct it. So whether that is just on the directing side or maybe even writing the movie as well. But if we were going to see him helm anything, it'd be a good minimum, like minimum 5 years away, and even that might be a bit too soon. Like, I'm sure Berlanti would want that break from the universe, and even Gunn and Safran will be thinking that a break would be needed between big projects, even just to like refresh yourself creatively. Obviously, I think many would say, oh, he should helm the Flash movie. That's like the easiest option ever, or another Arrowverse related character, like maybe not Green Arrow, but something like that. But I think considering what is up for offer at the time and how the universe is going at that time would have to be considered as well. Like, we don't know the climate 5 years from now in regards to how James Gunn's DC universe is going. It could be going really well, or maybe the films aren't performing that well, but the TV stuff is doing much better, and then maybe there's a different balance that you don't know what the climate's going to be. Like, I don't think a Flash movie is even going to be heading our way anytime soon, mainly due to the show just ending after pretty much 10 years, but also the movie only coming out last year as well, which was connected to the former DCU and didn't do very well, if well at all, at the box office. But I think a Flash movie would obviously just be a bit too similar in connection to the Arrowverse if Berlanti was to helm it, but maybe that would be the whole point of putting him in there. He knows the character, but I don't know, that might just be a bit too on the nose. But if you are looking for like an experienced creative who wants to make the movies or even like a TV show pretty much into live action comics, which is what Gunn is clearly doing, at least with Superman, if we look at what he's doing with Superman at the very least, then I think that Berlanti is probably one of the better choices to just step in and handle anything that Gunn has interest in putting into his universe. And of course, Berlanti already has those ties to Warner Brothers, and I'm sure that like there's been maybe some paths crossed and stuff like that. I know that Peter Safran, I think, had talked to Berlanti because there was the whole thing about the Green Lantern show that Berlanti, if you don't know, Berlanti was in charge of he was a executive producer on the Green Lantern show before Lantern. So the one that was going to have like Finn Wittrock as Guy Gardner and everything like that. And it was going to be like an anthology sort of thing. Berlanti was the head of the the production company behind that show. So I think him and Safran had talks about what they were planning with that, but I don't know if Gunn was involved with those specifically. But Gunn has referenced Berlanti when talking about other things and talking in interviews. I just don't know that if they've had like a one-on-one talk or anything like that. But then again, would there be a need to, unless there was, I guess, like an idea of doing something together? So I don't know. But yeah, I'm sure there's like a multitude of different projects that people could think of. And then again, we don't even know if that's a thing. But with that experience there, it's not a bad idea to think about, I guess, Berlanti being involved in something going forward. But I think regardless, there'd have to be some sort of break in there just because of the multitude of stuff that came before. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you drop a like and show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts on this. Would you like to see Berlanti helm something? What do you think he should helm? Obviously, I know a lot of people probably say the Flash or something like that, but you'd have a more interesting, maybe Arrowverse character that was obviously in the Arrowverse that could get a movie. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.